How different is virtual reality from our actual reality? First of all, we need to understand what virtual reality is. Let's define virtual reality. It is an artificial environment created by software that users experience throughout sight and sound, interacting with it to use it as a real environment. Virtual reality has become a big industry since the beginning of personal computers, and as technology advances, it keeps increasing. But how important virtual reality really is in our society? Virtual reality has become such an important industry that people spend real money to buy virtual money. Some video games company make more money from in-game purchases than from the actual game sales. Almost every popular video game from the last decade have in-game purchases like World of Warcraft, Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Call of Duty, FIFA, Counter-Strike, Rocket League, Battlefront, StarCraft, Destiny, Roblox, Candy Crush, Pokemon Go, League of Legends, Subway Surfer, Asphalt, Temple Run, Jetpack, Joyride, Angry Birds, Plant vs. Zombies, Hill Climb Rising, Farmville, Entropia Universe, even online. When one user spends time playing a video game online, most of the time gets rewarded in some way inside the video game. Gains experience, in-game currency, items, or raw materials for him or her to create more complicated objects or even constructing buildings. This is the exact same thing as in real life. People spend 8 hours a day doing some task and are rewarded in some way, usually with money which they use to either buy raw materials or financial products. Since the creation of online gaming companies began to involve in game purchases where people spend real money to have better experiences. Games like Entropia Universe, Second Life, and Lord Mancer 2 have an option where you can trade in-game money for real money. Planet Calypso, which belongs to Entropia Universe, was sold for the astonishing amount of $6 million to see virtual worlds. A whole new market is being created online. In the real world, people work, get cash or objects, which they later trade with other people that desired the object. The exact same thing happened in this time of video games. Users invest time, produce items, and sell them when they believe the object has acquired the most of its profits. Jean Neverdie, for instance, was making around $200,000 a year, selling goods and services before selling Club Neverdie. Like always, with money comes trouble. As money started to evolve in virtual reality, crimes started to be committed. Deception, false transactions, hacking are becoming more and more frequent. For instance, in Roblox, users create in-game models for other users to wear or use, such as helmets, weapons, vehicles, or buildings. These models can be sold to other players for in-game money, but big problems in these games is that the user steals these models and sells them as if they were their own. Intellectual property rights have been created to help define intangible property as real property. Kind of a copyright. You can copyright a logo. It is just an image, but they own the rights of it. It is the same concept. Now, streams of code or property. Think about it. Why would you spend time in some game to obtain something if you will later be deprived from it? Why would someone cutting through the game by stealing something that took the time to achieve shouldn't get punished? We've all have heard the saying, time is money, and that is one of the main things that give intellectual property its value. Time, creativeness, and demand. When a thief breaks into a house and takes away your jewelry to sell it to get profits, it is robbery. Why is this different from someone taking your virtual property, your account, and use it as their own? Theft is defined as the felonious taking of removing a personal property with intent to deprive the rightful owner of it. So it does not exclude intangible property or intellectual property. Why aren't there more regulations regarding virtual world? In their concept is not very different from the real one. For example, in a game called RuneScape, a user asks another user to lend him a sword that was bought with real money, and he promised to bring it back, but he didn't. This is called theft. He later sued, but he was not tried. Is this fair? Some gamers say that playing the game in these virtual worlds can involve at least as much effort as in real-world work, with many players spending substantial amount of real-world money to improve their avatars in the virtual world. These gamers believe that the real-world markets for virtual items shows that these goods possess value and deserve protection under the law. At the legislative level, a number of countries have responded to virtual theft by enacting or considering laws addressing virtual property crimes. Legislators in South Korea and Taiwan have enacted laws that make infringement upon virtual property a crime. The South Korea law instructs that online virtual property holds value independent of the game parent company or creator. Taiwan has established a sentence up to 3 years in jail for virtual theft. Since this is a developing environment, more laws are regulating need to establish to maintain the order in these online communities. This is just the beginning of much larger topic.